Well, good morning from California. My name is Will Reece, and I'm the marketing rep for AFC Vacations. We're excited to share with you our outstanding variety of tours and cruises for 2023 with you today. We're just a few days away from our first trip heading out the door this year with our first mystery tour. And our lineup of tours will start with two of our most fun and successful trips in our chartered river cruises. We'll then work our way from the west to the east and finish with the international programs. And there are so many trips that we offer. If we covered them all today, we'd be here for over 2 hours. So we will go through the majority of our trips, and those not mentioned can be found in our brochure. The AFC brochure is sent out with updates about 6 times a year. And if you're not already on our mailing list, please join by emailing april@afctours.com. What's included with AFC Vacations? We offer worldwide tours and cruises with a number of varying travel styles. So whether it's a European river cruise, a tour of the national parks, or a train tour, we cover them all. Our one hotel stays are some of our most popular trips, and they allow you to unpack once and settle into your hotel for your entire stay. And we offer inclusive and honest pricing with no gimmicks or tricks. Our prices include round-trip air, home pickup, or credit if you wish to make your own arrangements to the airport. Our tour managers are an unbelievable group of knowledgeable, helpful, and organized individuals, and they care about you as a traveler, and they go above and beyond to take care of all your needs on tour. The hotels, activities, and dining that we provide on tour give you a taste of local life. A lot of our meals introduce you to the regional specialties in the area. And we also incorporate cultural experiences with many of our dinners, like a fado show in Portugal. The hotels we use are well located and comfortable, and the included sightseeing make our trips memorable with guided commentary to bring the destinations to life. One of the items we recently introduced was guaranteed pricing. And once you deposit on your tour, once you pay your deposit, your price is locked in. So even as fuel prices change for motor coaches and river cruise ships, you're set. For example, last year we had a river cruise going out, and the cruise company sent us a $10,000 fuel surcharge. We absorbed that cost and didn't pass that on to our travelers. That's what you can expect from us. We also have guaranteed departures, and what that means is when you see the GD symbol in the brochure and on the show, that means we have enough passengers to travel on that departure and it's ready to go out the door. So as we move closer through 2023, you'll see a lot more of those programs going to guaranteed departure status. Now, a few of the key pieces of what make AFC Vacations so special and unique really come down to our excellent team of real people handling all of the different aspects of your program here in San Diego. Our staff has a wealth of knowledge and expertise with over 130 years of travel experience combined, and we look forward to assisting you to make travel easy. We include round-trip air on all of our tours from many different airports that you can see in our brochures. And at AFC, we also include low-cost travel insurance. That is an optional add for you, and that has a cancel for any reason benefit. So great travel insurance option to add to any program. And that just provides some extra security as you move closer to your tour. Now, for over 25 years, we've been making travel easier by providing round-trip airport pickup service. So we pick you up at your home, take you to the airport, and bring you home from your flight. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of getting to and from the airport. Now, new for 2023 is a $100 credit if you choose to make your own arrangements to the airport. So with the growth of Uber and Lyft, and a lot of people like their own car service, they've been working with somebody for a long time. And we've found that more people are asking about this opportunity of travel. So that means if you choose not to take the home pickup, your final payment will be reduced by $100 per person. And if you live near the airport or share an Uber or taxi with your spouse or travel companion, generally that's around $45 or $50 each way that you're saving. And you could spend that on shopping or on a great meal in one of our many destinations. So when we go around and do these shows, the virtual shows as well as in the community, we like to provide different show specials. So if you book a new 2023 tour or river cruise by Friday, January 27th, we reduce the deposit down $100 off. So that just means you're putting less money up front. So from a regular $350 deposit, we're dropping that to $250 for this show. So again, only available to show attendees. And then we also reduced the travel protection plan $20 if you pay with your deposit. A great new opportunity for you to save. We've had early booking savings for a long time, but we're actually extending that to many more travelers. So for the first 1 to 10 who book on a tour, you'll be saving $100. If you're the 11th to 20th passenger booked on a specific departure, that's a $75 savings. And now through the end of February, if you book as one of the 21st through 50th passenger, you get $50 off automatically. Again, this offer is only good through the end of February. And then for our river cruises, we're offering a 1 category upgrade, and that can save you anywhere from $200 to $400 per person on either our October 25th Burgundy and Provence River Cruise or our November 2023 Switzerland and the Rhine, Christmas markets of the Rhine. And these are both fantastic programs. You just need to use the code JAN17, JAN17, to apply those savings, again, by next Friday, January 27th. We'll start out by talking about Burgundy and Provence. And traveling on the Rhone River in France is an unmatched experience. It's one of the most memorable cruises of any that I've done on the rivers. And this trip features 7 nights aboard the Amadeus Provence. And that was built in 2017 and holds less than 140 passengers. So this is a much better way to travel in smaller groups than a large cruise ship. And there are only 8 suites available on board. And these are the first category that booked out on any of the cruises. They're much more spacious, and the balcony doors allow for an open-air journey along this spectacular river. So we include round-trip air in and out of Lyon, and that makes for a very convenient travel day. As with all of our cruises, we also incorporate free wine, beer, and soft drinks with our dinners. And then we also incorporate free Wi-Fi for our travelers on board the cruises. Now, on board, you have the River Terrace and the Amadeus Club, which are both great public spaces. These are wonderful indoor areas to enjoy a book or chat with friends. And our first port of call is the city of Mâcon. And that's where we include a walking tour, sitting right on the river of the Rhone. And Mâcon has a beautiful layout, which is flat and easy to get around. Very historic buildings and many park areas with a great museum. And these are just some of the main points of this fantastic French city. Now, it's also the hub of the Mâconnaise region of Burgundy, which is one of the most famous wine regions in all of France and all of the world. And Burgundy is home to both red and white wines. The northern part near Dijon produces more red, and the southern part produces more whites. And after our city tour, we include an excursion through the vineyards to a wine tasting experience. Our next stop was an unknown delight when I was here in 2018, and that is Beaune. And our city tour of Beaune in this walled town includes a visit to the Hotel Dieu, and that was built in 1443. And it's a polychrome roof and Gothic architecture that is just stunning, and you can see that in the bottom left. And it was a building as a hospital for the poor in a period just after the plague and was managed by the Holy See. So you'll tour the entire facility with its master artworks and nearby vineyards and special architecture that make it a very memorable stop on the tour. Our city tour of Lyon takes us to the Lyon Cathedral, and this is a Roman Catholic church built up on the hill overlooking the river. Construction there took place between 1100 and 1476. So we also see in town the Old Town section of Lyon, broken down into multiple districts. And this is my favorite part of the day, as these paved old streets and colorful facades of houses dating back to the Renaissance bring to life the historic district. Then we make our way south on the river, heading to Avignon, otherwise known as the City of Popes, and 7 popes lived here in the 14th century. We include the Bridge of Avignon as well as the Palace of the Popes with a guided walking tour, and we dock right in town, so it's easy to explore. The following day, we head to Arles, and that is a gem on the river. Very quaint southern French town with a Roman amphitheater that rivals the Colosseum. And this is an outstanding site to visit, and we go inside to see it all. On the final day aboard, you can choose to relax and enjoy the river cruising aspect, or take an optional tour to the Ardèche Gorge, which is one of the most majestic views in all of the world. And you can choose to extend your journey for a 2-night optional to Paris. This features a city tour of both Dijon as well as making our way north to Paris and doing a city tour there with the sights of Notre Dame, the Louvre, and Eiffel Tower. And we also include a Seine River cruise through town. And then you'll have the afternoon as well free in Paris to enjoy a museum visit or walk along the Champs-Élysées. So this cruise departs October 25th with Deb Howard. And here's a quick clip to introduce you to our river cruising experience. So again, this cruise departs October 25th and will fill up quick, so book your cabins as soon as possible. Again, these are just a few of the highlights of the Paris extension: Dijon City Tour, a Paris City Tour, and that great Seine River cruise, as well as a free afternoon in Paris. So all these inclusions, as well as some optional tours that take you out into the heart of France. Make sure you put in your deposits as soon as possible. This next program is one of the best times to be in Europe, just before the holiday season, and that's when you can do all your Christmas shopping at the markets, the Christmas markets of Europe. So we sail on this cruise on the Amadeus Imperial. That is a new ship, and it was launched in 2020 and was barely used for a year and a half. And there are 12 suites on board with walkout balconies, but this cruise is already half full, so please don't wait to book. We fly into Zurich, Switzerland, and make our way to Lucerne for one night and enjoy a guided walking tour of the Chapel Bridge and many of the other sites, and then finish at the Christmas markets for some free time. Our ship meets us in Strasbourg, so we drive from Lucerne to Strasbourg, and that town has had an identity crisis for hundreds of years. With each war, it changes back and forth between German and French. But it's an amazing city with its Notre Dame Cathedral, fun holiday decorations that really bring to life the spirit of the holidays. And we enjoy a walking tour here, as well as time to explore the markets all over town. So there's not just the main market by the cathedral, but all over. On our way north, we stop in the small town of Speyer in Germany, and that's where we learn about its Celtic settlement back in 100 BC. And it's also home to a stunning Romanesque cathedral founded in 1030. Our next stop we make is to the town of Rüdesheim, and that's where you'll have the choice to wander at your own pace or join an optional tour to the Music Instrument Museum. And that afternoon is when we enjoy some of the cruising aspects that make the Rhine great. So we sail through the Rhine River Gorge and along some of Germany's amazing castles. And our arrival into Koblenz occurs usually in the late afternoon, and we enjoy a walking tour and time at the market at night. So this is a great opportunity to see a market at night. One of my biggest highlights is the small town of Kokum. And this is where we do a walking tour with the Reichsburg Castle. And this castle sits up above the hill looking down on town, and it is just beautiful. We also include a wine tasting in Kokum, and that sits on the Moselle River, and it's home to some amazing German Rieslings and Pinot Noir. We wrap up this cruise with a stop in Cologne, one of the great German cities, and home to one of the most famous cathedrals in all of Europe. It took nearly 6 centuries to complete, and it's a gorgeous Gothic cathedral. Then we finish in front of the cathedral after our walking tour for an afternoon at leisure and plenty of time to explore the Christmas markets or some of the great museums in town, like the Museum Ludwig or the Chocolate Museum. And our last activity together is a delicious farewell dinner with Baked Alaska as the finale. So really unbelievable opportunity to explore the Christmas markets of Germany as well as Switzerland, departing November 29th. Our Canadian Rockies and Glacier National Park tour is a new one for this year. We used to do the US and Canadian national parks. It was quite an extensive tour. So we cut it down and focused more so on Canada. So this tour includes round-trip air into Calgary, which is the largest city in Alberta. And Calgary is home to the famous Stampede Rodeo that takes place in July, runs about 10 days long. And we work our way over to a World Heritage site called Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. This site is over 6,000 years old, and it's where the Blackfeet tribe used to run buffalo off a 300-foot cliff during their hunting practices. Once the Anglo-Americans killed off the buffalo population, the Blackfeet had to relocate, and thus leaving that site untouched for several thousand years. From here, we head over to Waterton Lakes, and this has been a protected site since 1895. So Waterton was Canada's 4th national park, and it's the smallest in the Rockies at about 195 square miles. Here you'll see clear lakes, diverse wildlife, and beautiful surrounding mountains. And then we continue into Montana for one night, and we stay at the Glacier Park Lodge. This is one of the least visited areas due to its remote location. Now, in 1850, there were an estimated 80 glaciers in what would become Glacier National Park. And in 2015, they estimated about 26 meet the size criteria to be considered a glacier. It is a land of mountain ranges carved by prehistoric ice rivers and features alpine meadows, deep forests, waterfalls, and about 200 sparkling lakes. And then you'll enjoy the first part of the day in Glacier Park as we enjoy the Red Jammer car. And we take these 1930s cars over the scenic highway and across the Continental Divide. We end at Lake McDonald before heading to Kalispell, Montana for an overnight, and then work our way through the beautiful red walls of Sinclair Canyon and Radium Hot Springs as we visit Kootenay National Park en route to Banff. So Banff sits in this beautiful stretch surrounded by mountains and about 36 miles from Lake Louise. The town developed after the arrival of the Canadian Pacific Railway, and the Banff National Park was established in 1887. So Banff is a year-round tourist hub with hot springs, skiing, and many museums nearby. And then we get to see the gorgeous Lake Louise with its shimmering water surrounded by epic mountains. And you'll take the Banff gondola to the top of the Sulphur Mountain, and that has a view of 6 mountain ranges and the valley below. So wonderful program with many dates throughout the summer, June, July, and August. So please take a look at this program if you're interested in traveling to Canada. This is a great tour that we're excited to bring back for just one departure in 2023. And that'll be April 26th with Chris McCool. This is the only opportunity you'll get to see these 6 state parks and 6 national parks combined. So this tour starts and ends in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll head from there into the beauty and nature of the national parks by staying 2 nights in Zion. And the valley floor surrounded by 2,000-foot high Navajo sandstone cliffs are stunning. And then rain or shine, no matter what, that park is absolutely gorgeous because even in the rain, it does something to the color that just makes it more vibrant. The park has over 1,000 species of plants, and we also include on this tour a trip out to Bryce Canyon, to see the famous hoodoo formations, which have eroded throughout the years. We include both Capitol Reef as well as a 2-night stay in Moab, which is a center point for visits to both Arches and Canyonlands. So it's smack dab in the middle of a number of different sandstone adventures. And then Goblin Valley is a lesser-known state park with a landscape that's often compared with Mars. It was discovered by cattle ranchers, and it gets its name for the goblin-like sandstone formations. I'd say if you mix the Badlands of South Dakota and the Hoodoos of Bryce, you get Goblin Valley. And it's just an amazing sight to behold, and became a state park in 1964. Monument Valley is also part of this tour, a wonderful chance to take you back about 200 or more years when they had all the Native Americans living on that land. And then our grand finale will be a stop at the north rim of the Grand Canyon to see its splendor. So there are still some single supplement saving discounts available on this departure as well. And April 26th is this tour date. Now, this Seattle to San Francisco journey highlights some of the best sites on the West Coast and the three main cities of the northern stretch, along with national and state parks along the way. But we'll start out in Seattle with a city tour that features the Space Needle and Pike Place Market, the famous gum wall, as well as where they throw the fish. Then we work our way down south to the Mount St. Helens area and visit the visitor center there and get great shots of the mountain. Then off to Portland for a night overnight, and that incorporates a city tour with the Rose Test Gardens. And this is an area where they've been testing different varietals of roses for a couple hundred years now. From there down the Oregon coast to the famous sand dunes. This is a gorgeous stretch along the coastline, jagged cliffs, as well as these beautiful dunes. And then we make our way into Coos Bay along the coast, where it's a huge hub for oysters. And we stay one night there before continuing down to the Rogue River. And this is where we do a jet boat ride along the Rogue and also have a wonderful lunch incorporated there. We continue across the border from Oregon into California and stop in the Redwoods National Park. And there are many different groves around Northern California of these beautiful coastal redwoods that we get to see up close. From there, we stay one night in Eureka, get one more segment of redwoods as we travel through the Avenue of the Giants. This is a long roadway, scenic roadway surrounded by these beautiful trees. And then we work our way down to San Francisco for 2 nights and incorporate a wine tasting as well as a San Francisco city tour to see this beautiful area. And this departure is one time this year, August 13th. Now, our most popular tour is the Great Trains and Grand Canyons, and this operates during the spring and fall as we avoid the heat of the Arizona summer. And we stay 5 nights surrounded by the beautiful red rocks of Sedona, Arizona. Our first full day takes us around Sedona on a trolley tour that also stops at the Chapel of the Holy Cross, and that was built in 1954 up into the Red Rocks. We take you to uptown Sedona as well as the artist community of Tlaquepaque. And our day to the Grand Canyon takes us through the Oak Creek Canyon en route to Williams, Arizona. And that's where we board the Grand Canyon Railway to the South Rim. Now, it really is magical stepping through the Bright Angel Lodge and seeing the canyon laid out in front of you. Then an unknown highlight for a lot of people is our journey on the Verde Canyon Railroad. This takes us through the most lush and beautiful stretch of Arizona lying just to the west of Sedona. And we have a first-class car as well as an open-air car attached to it, and that's where a naturalist tells you all about the surrounding area. We have a couple of optional tours like the Pink Jeep, as well as our trip up to the north into the Flagstaff area to see some of the volcanic activities. Then we also go down to Montezuma's Castle, that beautiful cliff dwelling in the bottom left corner. So as you can see, so many different departures from February on through to October, as this is our most popular West Coast trip. Now, Yellowstone and Mount Rushmore, this is where you get to enjoy 2 nights on arrival in the city of Presidents, and that is Rapid City. This is the hub for many of the activities in the Black Hills of South Dakota, including our visits to Mount Rushmore, as well as Crazy Horse Memorial. You'll travel to Deadwood and learn all about those famous characters like Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane, both of whom played a big part, not only in the gold rush of 1874, but also their lives there. We continue to Devil's Tower and stay 1 night in Sheridan. Devil's Tower rises 1,200 feet above the Belle Fourche River, and it's absolutely gorgeous with its lava that flowed up. One of my favorite stops on this tour is our time at the Buffalo Bill Cody Museum. And this is a 5-part museum at the center of the West. It explores the Plains Indians, as well as trailblazing cowboys and cowgirls, and classic and modern Western artworks. Really wonderful stop on this tour. And then we enter Yellowstone National Park through the east entrance. It's a beautiful journey from Cody through the Buffalo Bill Reservoir, the Shoshone River, and Yellowstone Lake. Then we stay 2 nights in West Yellowstone, do a full loop tour which highlights Old Faithful Geyser, a lot of the fountain pots, and Yellowstone Canyon. We then drive south along the peaks of the Grand Tetons on our way to Jackson Hole, and you'll have the opportunity to stop along the way to see these majestic mountains. The tour winds down with a Salt Lake City tour that highlights the Mormon Tabernacle, State Capitol, and the University of Utah. And we have 2 departures for 2023. June 15th, led by Deb Howard, and July 13th with Larry Womack. Seattle and the San Juan Islands with our Alaska cruise. We did a similar version last year and a couple of different components here. But we'll start with 2 nights in Seattle. That incorporates a city tour with the Space Needle and Pike Place Market. The market's the longest continuously operating farmers market in the U.S., dating back to the early 1900s. We also head up to the town of Edmonds, and that's where we board a whale watching cruise through the San Juan Islands. And this is the epicenter of whale activity here. There are about 3 main pods of orca that run through the islands, and we board the MS Westerdam for a 7-night journey to the last frontier of Alaska. The Westerdam features excellent bars, entertainment, and dining venues, as well as regional cooking demonstrations and food and wine tastings. Plus, completely reimagined suites. The ship's a fascinating destination in her own right and won multiple Best Cruise Ship awards. On board, all this great entertainment you can't beat. And then the 3 main ports of call that we join, and that will be Juneau, Ketchikan, and Sitka. Each have different unique features to them. Juneau with its gold rush history and nearby Mendenhall Glacier. Then you have Ketchikan with its salmon fishing heritage and Alaskan native roots. And then Sitka, which is out on Baranov Island. It's got a great connection to Russia and a lot of great Orthodox-style buildings. And then the Fortress of the Bear, which is a bear habitat. There's also the Raptor Center, so if you're into wildlife, this is a fantastic section to see. Then we head out to Hubbard Glacier, and this is North America's largest tidewater glacier. It's over 75 miles long and 7 miles wide, feeding into the Pacific. So this is a can't-miss opportunity to see the wonders of the Northwest and Alaska, and all with a tour manager with Chris McCool. So July 28th, just one time this year. Now, Hawaii 3 Islands Adventure takes us to 3 of the main islands in the archipelago. So you have palm trees, warm breeze, and fresh tropical fruit. These are just some of the highlights. And our feature of this tour, landing into Oahu, 3 nights in Honolulu, and right near Waikiki Beach. Then the following day, you'll visit Pearl Harbor, learn about the events that took place on December 7th, 1941, and board a Navy skiff out to the site of the USS Arizona Memorial. From there, you'll set off on a Honolulu city tour that incorporates Punchbowl Crater, the state capitol, and governor's mansion. And then you can also choose a day off at Waikiki Beach or take a Circle Island tour that sees the Dole Plantation, North Shore with its stunning surf, and other beautiful sights. Heading to the Big Island, you'll see the Volcanoes National Park, as well as Black Sand Volcanic Beach. And the sand here is made of pitch black fragments of cooled lava. You'll check into your resort on the Kona coast and settle in for 2 nights. Then travel to historic Kailua Kona for dinner and try a local beer by Kona Brewing Company or some famous Kona coffee. And enjoy the following day on your own or join a whale watching excursion to see the beautiful humpback whales, spinner dolphins, and a lot of other species that travel through the Hawaiian Islands. You'll fly to Maui, and that's where you'll travel to the Iwa Valley and see some of the most lush parts of Hawaii. And then we stay 3 nights in Lahaina on this beautiful island. Now in the morning, we'll head up above the clouds to the Haleakala crater and get stunning views of this once formidable volcano. And our farewell is a true Hawaiian experience with a luau that teaches the story of the Polynesian culture. So again, just a few dates, a couple in spring, February 21st, March 17th, and those are both guaranteed departures, and then November 7th. Waterways and Northwest National Parks in my backyard. We start by flying into Seattle, but stay 2 nights in the city of Tacoma. Now, Tacoma was actually going to be the main city of Washington until the gold rush of the 1890s brought in 2 tons of gold into the city of Seattle and created a boomtown. So we'll start with 2 nights in Tacoma. We'll work our way out to Mount Rainier, and this is one of the largest mountains in the entire country, over 14,000 feet. Then we also stop at the Northwest Trek Wildlife Park, and this is an area that features both species of animals found in the Northwest, as well as buffalo and many other different variety. So really great opportunity to see wildlife up close and personal. From Tacoma, we work our way up to the peninsula in Washington to Port Angeles, and this is where we see Olympic National Park. We take you up to Hurricane Ridge, and this is a beautiful visitor center as well as outlook over the Olympic Mountains that stand over 10,000 feet. Then we head off on a whale watching excursion through the San Juan Islands, and then we also get to visit Port Townsend, which is a wonderful stop along the way. But this tour starts July 14th and August 18th. July 14th with Deb Howard. In Black Hills and Badlands, this is a great opportunity for another 1 hotel stay in the heart of the Black Hills. And I'd say this is a top 5 tour of the West because it really does highlight the Wild West history, and it's easy to get around the main highlights from our hotel in Rapid City. So we'll start out by going out to the Badlands. This is an amazing stretch of geology with its different mounds and thousands-year-old geological formations. Now, this is also an area of an exotic rainforest at one point in time, so it's just amazing to see the differences. Then we do a dinner at Fort Hays. This is a chuck wagon supper and was actually the site of the movie Dances with Wolves. We then get to see the famous Mount Rushmore in 2 different ways. We see it during the daytime and then come back at night for the illumination ceremony. And then we're down to the Crazy Horse Memorial, and this has been in construction since 1948. So a long, long time. It's going to take a long time for them to finish, but it is an amazing opportunity to see up in the right-hand corner. So then one of my favorite experiences on this whole program is the Custer State Park visit and our Buffalo Jeep Safari. And that's where we'll take you out in Jeeps into the plains of Custer State Park, where there's over 1,000 head of buffalo. It's a really great tour and program, June 7th and July 12th. Getting into another new program, this is Utah's Mighty National Parks, and this features some amazing specialty locations. The parks tour on this one is really a geological gold mine, and this tour brings to life the main parks of Utah like no one else can. We arrive in Grand Junction, Colorado, where the group enjoys a welcome dinner on this trip, and then the next morning we make our way to the Colorado National Monument, and that's where visitors can see the remarkable effects of millions of years of erosion. And then it's also got a couple of unique geological features, biological soil crusts, as well as potholes. Now, soil crusts are similar to coral reefs. And then after our visit, we make a stop for a wine tasting in the up-and-coming Colorado wine region of the Grand Valley AVA. And this is part of a 76,000-acre production of numerous wineries along the Colorado River. From the tasting, we wind our way along Scenic Byway 128, known as the River Road, as it follows the Colorado for about 44 miles. It's an incredibly beautiful drive along the way. We then arrive in Moab for a 5-night stay, and this is a great hub for ventures into different parks in Utah. Capitol Reef National Park is a hidden treasure filled with cliffs, canyons, domes, and bridges in the Water Pocket Fold, which is a geologic minefield as well. Then we stop in Dead Horse Point State Park and see the famous location with its dramatic bend of the Colorado River. And this is all part of Canyonlands National Park, which is the largest national park in Utah. And the island in the sky sits atop a massive 1,500-foot mesa, quite literally an island in the sky. And 20 miles of paved roads lead to many of the most spectacular views in canyon country. The canyons were carved by both the Colorado and Green Rivers over the centuries. On this program, we take you to Monument Valley and the Navajo land, where we actually are led by a Navajo tribal member out to see these magical formations. Then Arches sits only 5 miles from Moab and contains the world's largest concentration of natural sandstone arches. The park totals over 76,000 acres, with balanced rocks, a scenic drive, and a variety of different rock formations. And our farewell dinner in Canyonlands takes you on a river cruise by night, and that's where a guide will present a narrated show illuminating the canyon walls. And this is a can't miss. It's a really wonderful program with multiple dates: May 7th, June 18th, which is guaranteed, September 24th, guaranteed as well, and then October 1st. And this is 8 days and 10 meals incorporated. Our New Mexico Balloon Fiesta is a wonderful program that we started out with one date, and it became so popular that we added a second. So October 6th and 13th, both are which are guaranteed. And the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta has 2 different viewings. They do the Mass Ascension, and that's as the sun is rising up over the hills of Albuquerque. And then we come back at night for the Balloon Glow. So that same evening, you get to see it again in different lighting and different styles. And at times, there are over 500 to 700 balloons taking off at once. This is the most photographed event in the world. We work our way from Albuquerque and see the Indian and Pueblo Cultural Center. This focuses on the Native American cultures of the Southwest. And then up to the Los Alamos Bradbury Science Museum. And this is where they talk a lot about the Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb. From there, we stay 3 nights in Santa Fe, and that's where we do a city tour, as well as seeing the main plaza. And then continue up to Taos. And en route, we take the high road to Taos, which is a scenic drive. And we stop at Chamayo's El Santuario. This is an old Spanish church, Spanish-style church, with a winding staircase. And it's part of a pilgrimage of over 30,000 people each year that take the road from Santa Fe up to Chamayo. So really beautiful church and cathedral there. And then we also stop in Taos and do a Pueblo tour, as well as seeing the Taos Plaza. So 2 great dates and an amazing tour in October. Now, the mystery tours are generally 5 days in length, and these trips are a huge success and sell out nearly every departure. We have over 60 mystery tour destinations with all sorts of fun-filled activities, and our staff is here to help you pick the right departure for you. If you've done 1 or more mystery tours with us, at time of booking, our team can direct you to something new. How do they work? When you book, you'll be advised how to pack, the average weather in the destination, and then some helpful hints along the way. About 3 weeks prior, you'll receive your packet, and that tells you what time your flight leaves on which airline. And it's always fun to tell the folks at the check-in counter you don't know where you're going. Now, once you check in, you'll get your boarding pass and find out where your first destination is going to be. But that may not be where you stay. The tour manager will meet you in baggage claim on arrival, and over the course of the trip, they'll reveal tour components or give clues along the way. Now, the first clue I have for you this year is our international tour. August 13th is going to Canada. I'm not going to tell you where in Canada, but this gives you an idea. So these are trips for folks who have been to most major U.S. cities and destinations, those who have a sense of adventure, and those who don't need to know all the details. But they are awesome itineraries, creative and fun, with the seasons and weather considered. So we do help you plan your packing. And the Best of Chicago is a great Unpack Once tour based in the heart of Chicago at the Palmer House Hilton. And you'll spend 5 nights in the city, enjoy a city tour on day 2, and that features a visit to the Willis Tower. You'll also see the Magnificent Mile, and that's a premier commercial district of Chicago. On day 3, you'll take a tour to learn about the history of Chicago's gangsters of the 1920s and 30s, like Al Capone, John Dillinger, and more. And that afternoon, you'll tour Wright's studio, where Frank Lloyd Wright lived and worked. Then you'll spend day 4 up in Racine, Wisconsin, and that's where you'll visit the research and admin buildings of S.C. Johnson Wax. And their factory produces Windex, Glade, and a lot of other daily products. Afterwards, you'll see the Johnson family mansion, completed in 1939 by Frank Lloyd Wright. And you'll tour Wrigley Field, which is home of the Chicago Cubs baseball team. and then take an architectural tour of Chicago by river and learn some of the unique designs of the city buildings. Then you'll also get a free afternoon in Chicago. And before returning, you'll also tour the 500-acre estate of the editor of the Chicago Tribune newspaper called Cantigny Park. So really great opportunity to see the city of Chicago as well as the outskirts, May 25th and September 15th. Niagara Falls and the Grand Hotel is a wonderful program, and we begin this magical trip in Dearborn, Michigan, and visit two very popular attractions. You can never have enough time in Henry Ford's Museum, and we also visit the River Rouge plant, and that's where you can literally watch F-150s, Ford's product, being made in a moving assembly line. Ford wanted to collect items of historical significance, and the museum collection contains presidential limo of John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln's chair from Ford's Theater, and Thomas Edison's laboratory, along with a lot of great exhibits as well. Now, who wouldn't want to unwind, disconnect, and enjoy a peaceful island stay with no cars and being picked up by a horse-drawn carriage that takes you up the hill to this beautiful property, the Grand Hotel, for 2 nights? And that's where fine dining and dancing are available to you. We do a great night where everybody dresses up and fantastic dinner there. And each room is decorated in a unique style. It's elegant and personified. Then we bring you along the way and make our way on a city tour of Mackinac via horse-drawn carriage as well. And when we leave the island, we go across the Mighty Mac suspension bridge, and we spend the night in the town of Frankenmuth. That's got a Bavarian-style shop, restaurants, and wonderful Christmas wonderland, this beautiful Christmas store that is the size of a Costco. Then when it comes to Niagara Falls, we don't just see the falls, we experience it in as many ways as we can, except for going over in a barrel. We go behind the falls where we don rain ponchos, we take a boat right up to the base of the falls and hear the power. And then we walk along just feet away from the power of the Niagara River. So while this is not right next to the falls, it's a beautiful opportunity to see all the different facets of the multiple falls that are there, whether it's Bridal Veil or Horseshoe. And Niagara Falls is capable of producing over 4 million kilowatts of electricity, and that's shared between the US and Canada. So wonderful program, May 12th, June 2nd, September 23rd, and October 7th. Then Magnolia Trails in the heart of Texas was a newer product in the last year or two. And this is a great opportunity to see some really unique areas that have come on the map more recently. And we'll start by flying into Dallas, spending 2 nights there. And our city tour features the AT&T Stadium, which is home of the Dallas Cowboys. Then we also work our way around to some of the JFK sites. That includes the Texas Book Depository. And then we also visit the George W. Bush Presidential Library on the campus of SMU. Now, as we make our way down to Waco, we stop at Fort Worth. And this is where we stay at the Stockyards Historic District to see a cattle drive. So each day, twice a day, they take Texas Longhorns straight through the streets like they did in the old days. And so you'll be able to view this cattle drive right through the town. We then work our way over to Waco and spend 2 nights there. Waco really came on the map more recently with the HGTV series by Chip and Joanna Gaines, Fixer Upper. And they have really fixer-uppered the entire town of Waco. This is completely redone a lot of the old silos. So in the Magnolia markets, they turn these grain silos into a retail outlet. There's also the Silos Baking Company, as well as our visit to the Dr. Pepper Museum. And then you can't go to Texas without doing a Texas barbecue farewell dinner. So this is March 25th with Mark Jacobson. We also have a November 4th departure. Savannah and Charleston. This is a wonderful program and incorporates parts of 3 states on the Atlantic coast, which are South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And we start in the beautiful Charleston area, where we stay 2 nights and work our way around the historic district. So if you're a landscape or gardening enthusiast, this tour is especially for you, as our first visit is to Middleton Place, and that's home of America's oldest landscape garden. Then it's off on a city tour of Charleston, originally called Charlestown after King Charles, and it was settled by the English in 1670. So this is one of America's oldest cities and has a beautiful waterfront park as part of its town. Then it's off to continue our journey south, where we see Beaufort, South Carolina. And we visit the town in style on a carriage ride through the city. And throughout our journey, you'll see some of the historic mansions of the South. And that includes the Alston House. It's been through all sorts of chaos with the Civil War and natural disasters, but stood the test of time. And you'll see charming homes and mansions and beautiful historic properties along the way. We then stayed 2 nights in the city of Savannah, and this is one of my favorite locations in the South. It's European in style, with its public squares, oaks, and azaleas, along with fountains and statues, and it really brings to life some of the old world connection. Then on our city tour, we see the old Cotton Exchange, River Street, as well as the site of General Sherman's March to the Sea. For 2 nights, we're lucky enough to stay at the famed Jekyll Island Club, and that was built in the 1880s. Originally, it was the site of an exclusive hunting club, but once opened under the new name, it was known as the richest, most exclusive, and inaccessible club in the world. The island was home to the Rockefellers, the Goodyear family, the Pulitzers, and many, many more. And their homes are part of a guided trolley tour that features these historic properties. We wind down to Florida and fly out of Jacksonville on this trip. And there are 3 dates on this one: March 29th, April 26th, and November 6th. Now, Washington, D.C. cherry blossoms is a great opportunity to see the nation's capital. And it's the best time to be in D.C. when the cherry blossoms are peaking in April. So the color really gives D.C. a whole different vibrant energy. And your second day includes a visit to the Arlington National Cemetery with 600 acres of memorial to the soldiers who served our nation. Then it's off to the White House Visitor Center and learn about the executive mansion and presidential families. And then over to the Tidal Basin, and that's where you'll see the Jefferson, FDR, MLK, and World War II memorials, which are clustered fairly close together. We also take you on a walking tour of the other monuments like the Vietnam Wall and the Korean War Memorial, and these moments in history are brought to life by our expert tour directors. Spend a day in the Smithsonian Institutes along the Capitol Mall, where you can choose which museum you'd like to see, and then board the Odyssey ship for a cherry blossom cruise with narration and live band, as well as great meal. You'll visit Ford's Theater, and that was the infamous site of Abraham Lincoln's assassination. So you'll get a chance to take some time to visit the museum on the lower level before walking through the main theater and seeing the booth where John Wilkes Booth fired that famous shot and changed history. We leave the city for Annapolis for lunch and begin an Annapolis city tour that features the U.S. Naval Academy. And then on the last full day, you'll get a look inside the U.S. Capitol at the Capitol Visitor Center, and that highlights the U.S. lawmaking process. And finally, it's off to Mount Vernon and George and Martha Washington's estate, just to the south of the city. There, it's a self-guided tour of the property to spend some time in the Education Center and learn about George Washington's story, his time with the British before he led the U.S., and see the working farm along with George Washington's tomb on site. So April 10th for this departure, and it really is a beautiful time to be in D.C. Then I just got back a couple of weeks ago from San Antonio for a few days, and kind of a last-minute trip. I can't say enough about the town of San Antonio. It is an amazing city, and they really stepped their game up for events, and the San Antonio Fiesta is no different. The big part of this trip is the Texas Cavaliers River Parade, and this is put on by the U.S. Army, and they send floats down the river with all sorts of great decorations, and it really does celebrate our nation's servicemen and women. And then it's also a great Unpack Once tour, and you'll stay 4 nights in the city of San Antonio, right close to the Riverwalk. It includes a welcome and farewell dinner, all of your breakfasts, and some exceptional sightseeing. So on our city tour, we also feature the IMAX Theater. That tells the story of the Alamo before you actually see the Alamo right next door. And then also a visit to the Mission San Jose as part of our San Antonio city tour. So that's just on the outskirts of town, and that was one of the original Spanish settlements. Then we work our way around and make our way up to the hill country, just north of San Antonio. And that's where you'll visit Lyndon B. Johnson's family ranch. And that was a working cattle ranch throughout his presidency. And you'll see his home, where he had a TV in every single room to make sure he stayed up with the latest stories in the news. Then it's on to Fredericksburg for a stop to grab some lunch and explore this German-themed town. And then over to the National Museum of the Pacific Theater. And Chester Nimitz was the U.S. Admiral during World War II. He was actually born and raised there in Fredericksburg, and this museum is dedicated to him. But it is absolutely stunning, just the amount of varied exhibits that they have there. And then Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center is included in this tour as well, and that's a great site, especially if you're a gardener. Then we also work our way up to the capital of Texas, and that's Austin. And that's where we'll see the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library, as well as the University of Texas campus, because that's located right there. And Austin is a great city. You'll drive by the the Texas Capitol as well. So April 21st, and that is guaranteed. There are only a handful of seats remaining on this trip, so make sure you sign up. Nashville in the Smoky Mountains is a brand new tour for 2023. This program is a blend of the best parts of 3 tours we've done in the past. Music Cities with our time in Nashville, Kentucky with Noah's Ark, and the Smoky Mountains with Pigeon Forge. And so you'll fly into Louisville, Kentucky, staying 2 nights at either the Galt House or Brown Hotel. Then we start the trip with a visit to the Mecca of horse racing at Churchill Downs, and you'll tour the Kentucky Derby Museum, which preserves the legacy of the longest continuously running sporting event in the country. Our next visit takes us to the Louisville Slugger Museum and journey through the history of baseball. So even if you're not a baseball fan, this is a great museum. You can't go to Kentucky without learning about bourbon, and nearly 90% of the world's bourbon is produced here because of the minerals in the water. And we head to the Evan Williams Distillery for the bourbon experience. We also work our way out to the Ark Encounter, and this features a full-size Noah's Ark built according to the dimensions given in the Bible. It's the largest timber frame structure in the world, and you'll see numerous exhibits on living quarters and life on the Ark during our time here. And then we leave Louisville and head to Lexington, where we visit the Kentucky Horse Park. And that truly celebrates man's relationship with this majestic animal. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is a scenic wilderness, and that covers over 800 square miles. It's home to some of the highest peaks in the Appalachian Mountains, and a lot of the different species of animals, including black bear, wild boar, foxes, and wolves. Then we take you to the beautiful state of North Carolina, to the Biltmore Estate, and that was constructed in 1895 for George Washington Vanderbilt. Our last 2 days and nights are spent in the magical city of Nashville, and there's so much about this place to love, especially if you're a fan of music. So on Broadway, the streets lined with music venues left and right, and we spend those 2 nights at the beautiful property, the Gaylord Opryland. This is an expansive hotel with so much to see. You could literally spend those 2 nights just exploring the hotel alone. As part of our city tour, we incorporate in Nashville a stop at the Country Music Hall of Fame. And this extensive museum is dedicated to the music that put Nashville on the map. We also include stops at the Ryman Auditorium, which is known as the Mother Church of Country Music. And our grand finale is a performance of America's longest running radio show at the Grand Ole Opry. So great trip, 2 times this year, one in spring in April 26th, and then again September 20th. Now, New York City and the Hudson Valley is a fantastic tour to see the highlights of New York with 3 nights in the heart of the city. And 3 nights then out in the gorgeous valley near the town of Poughkeepsie. So the trip starts with the New York City tour and a local guide that will teach you all about the many segments of the city. That incorporates Times Square and a lot of the different boroughs. And then we also visit varied configurations of each neighborhood, and that incorporates Chinatown as well as Little Italy. Then one of my favorite places in the entire city, that is Central Park, and I could walk for hours through the 840-acre stretch. Just beautiful. And they have nearly 5 million trees and shrubs that were planted and laid a water supply system along with bridges and roads. So if you haven't been yet, this is definitely a top to do. Rockefeller Center is also incorporated. We visit the site with over 19 commercial buildings covering 22 acres. And the most popular and familiar is the ice rink there. But that's actually in recent years become a retro roller skating rink in the spring and summer. Then we take you out to the Statue of Liberty. And this is dating to about 1886 when they dedicated the site. And it was a gift from France initially. But in 1924, it was designated a national monument. We continue by boat to the center of immigration to the U.S., and that is Ellis Island. And from 1892 to 1924, it served as the nation's first immigration center, and nearly 12 million immigrants passed through here. We then visit another touching site, and that's the 9/11 Memorial. And they have unbelievable fountains, plaques, and the 9/11 Museum that we get to see. Under the signs and lights, we take you to Broadway, and we've included a Broadway show on this tour. And this is a fun surprise on which show we get tickets for. We also include tickets to the Rockettes during the holiday season. So if you do our New York holiday tour, that's a great thing to look forward to as well. And you'll also have time on this trip on day 3 if you want to get additional show tickets, if you have a specific show in mind that you want to see. Then it's off to the Hudson Valley. Now, New Paltz is a fun stop to where we see the Huguenots where they lived in the late 1600s. And this was a group that immigrated here from France and the Netherlands. So one of the original settlements. We also take you up to Hyde Park, and that's the area of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his presidential library, as well as home. So you get to see his home on the historic site there. And then we do a maple syrup farm tour and tasting. So you get to try all sorts of great treats from the Northeast. And then we also incorporate a Hudson River cruise on this tour to take you down the beautiful valley. So one departure this year, and that is October 13th, generally a great time to see when the colors are changing as well. Now this historic and awe-inspiring destination brings to light both colonial and modern highlights, and Boston's one of the largest cities in the United States. And you'll enjoy a city tour featuring much of the history of our country's foundation before we head out to Cape Cod. Now, Cape Cod is a hooked sandy peninsula that dates back to the glacial period, covers about 65 miles. And this is where the Pilgrims also came on the Mayflower in 1620. So we get to see Plymouth and this beautiful stretch. So you'll see the Plymouth Rock as well as the Plymouth Plantation, and then the recreated ship, the Mayflower II. So almost an identical replica. Then we stay 5 nights in either Hyannis or Yarmouth and journey to many of the sites, including ferry rides to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. In Nantucket, we get to enjoy the Whaling Museum, and that's where a lot of the wealth came into the Northeast with the whale oil. And then we also go out to Martha's Vineyard and then do a city tour of Newport, Rhode Island, as well as the famous Breakers Mansion. And that was home to the Vanderbilt family in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And this is our most popular East Coast tour. And you can see the extensive list of dates from June all the way through September. For the best weather, we plan the trip in the summer, and early fall is a great time to maximize temperatures as well as some of that fall color. Now, coastal Maine is a great tour to arrive into Boston as well, one of our nation's oldest cities, founded by the Puritans in 1630. And a sightseeing tour of Boston includes the State House, Boston's oldest public building, and that's where they hosted the reading of the Declaration of Independence. You'll see the Boston Common, that's a 50-acre Central Park in downtown. And then we also incorporate the USS Constitution, which was first launched in 1797. Now, one of the differences on the city tour on this compared to Cape Cod is we get access into Fenway Park. And this is the home of the Red Sox since 1912, the oldest ballpark in the United States. And we include a tour of the stadium on this program, and that's a big hit even if you're not a baseball fan. Then we enter into Maine, which is known for its rocky coastline and maritime history. Maine is also known as the Pine Tree State, as forest land covers about 89% of the state. So you'll rest your head in either Portland or Kennebunkport for 5 nights. And the Old Port features working fishing wharfs, as well as converted warehouses with restaurants and shops. That's a quaint historic district with cobblestone streets and brick buildings housing clothing boutiques, gourmet food stores, and souvenirs. The tour includes a scenic Casco Bay cruise to see the lighthouses, fishing boats, and local homes, as well as hopefully some local sea life like seals. And the coast of Maine is also where migrating humpback whales can be seen. So Portland Head Lighthouse is one of our stops, and it's a historic lighthouse in Cape Elizabeth. The light station sits at the entrance of the primary shipping canal into Portland Harbor, and it was completed in 1791. It's one of the oldest lighthouses on the East Coast. Then on day 4, we visit the coastal town of Kennebunkport in southern Maine, known for its beaches, the Bush Compound, and the seashore trolley. And then Ogunquit is a town on Maine's southern coast with a long sandy peninsula of grassy dunes. Local fishermen take you out on a working lobster boat for one day, and that's where you get a hands-on experience of lobster fishing. Then we also see the famous Cape Nedic light station that was put into use in 1879 and still active today. And then, of course, you can't go to the Northeast without an authentic lobster clam bake. And the New England clam bake is a traditional method of cooking seafood, all sorts of different stuff, lobster, mussels, crab, and so much more. And that's done in a pit oven. Then you'll stop and visit a maple sugar house, and that is a specialized building where sap from the sugar maple tree is collected, boiled down, and formed into maple sugar or maple syrup. The last night features a farewell dinner with your new friends to share memories of your trip. And then it's off back to Boston to fly out. So great program all the way from July through October are our departures. And then our last program on the East before we get into international, this is Philadelphia and Brandywine. So we start out with a 5-night stay in Philadelphia. And this is another great Unpack Ones tour where you get to settle in and relax at your one hotel. We work our way out and about from Philadelphia each day. We incorporate a city tour in Philadelphia that includes the Independence Hall and National Constitution Museum. And then we also head out to Valley Forge. And this is where George Washington's headquarters were located. It's where he really brought the militia from all over the different colonies of the U.S. in to form the army. And that's where he rallied the troops, so to speak. From there, we also visit 2 of the great DuPont mansions. The DuPont family was the ones responsible for smokeless gunpowder. And so we'll see Longwood Gardens and Nemours Mansion on this trip. Then we go out to Hershey, Pennsylvania, famous for Hershey chocolate, and do a chocolate tasting as well as seeing the museum. And then up north to the Amish country, and that's where we get to see and learn all about this way of life. And then we wrap up the tour with a great farewell dinner incorporating a traditional meal in Amish country. And that's served family style. So wonderful way to wrap up the trip. June 4th with Deb Howard, and then September 24th with Denise Ryder are 2 dates. Now, as we get into our international and wrap up the program, this is Spain and Portugal highlights. And this is where we'll start our journey by flying into Portugal and the city of Lisbon. This takes off November 2nd, as well as March 23rd. March 23rd is getting ready to head out the door. And this has become one of my new gems in travel is Portugal. So I spent several weeks there in 2019 and fell in love with the people and the area. And after years as a sailing power, Portugal reached its peak in 1815 as a trading power. 4 million square miles of territory as part of the empire. And the capital city has so much to offer. Wonderful climate year-round, as well as a beautiful bay with a bridge almost identical to the Golden Gate. And then Alfama is one of the areas of town. It's one of Lisbon's oldest and most photogenic communities in the city. It's known for narrow, steep, and winding cobblestone streets. And then the National Pantheon, is a beautiful example of Baroque architecture in town. And we visit Geronimo's Monastery. This is one of the most important attractions in all of Lisbon, as well as the Tower of Belém. And that's another highlight of your tour on the north bank of the Tagus River. And the tower was used to defend the city and built in the early 1500s. Then you'll have the afternoon in Lisbon after the city tour to explore on your own if you wish. And then our second night, we do a Fado welcome dinner show. And in Portuguese, the word Fado means fate, but you probably know it as a traditional music genre. Now, Fado songs are usually connected to the feeling of nostalgia and yearning for something or someone. and that's why most lyrics are about broken hearts and lost sailors at sea. So it's truly a cultural experience you won't forget. Then we make our way over to Evora, and Evora sits about 90 minutes east of Lisbon, and it is home to Roman ruins, a 12th century cathedral, and a wonderful cuisine, almost Tuscan-like. We'll visit Evora en route to another beautiful city, and that is Seville, across the border into Spain. Now, Seville is the fourth largest city in Spain, and it blends culture, politics, and art. As the capital of the Andalusia region, it's also home to a prominent public square, an amazing cathedral, and we spend 2 nights there, complete with a city tour and flamenco show. So the Seville Cathedral is the third largest in the world after St. Peter's in Rome and St. Paul's in London, and it's also the location of the tomb of Christopher Columbus. So this is a can't miss stop. Now, the flamenco show that we incorporate is a fiery dance and one of Spain's great cultural hallmarks, bringing together 3 elements: rhythm, song, and dance. And we enjoy a wonderful dinner with wine as we watch the dancers and musicians wow us. Then we make our way to Granada, and the town was the final stronghold of the Moors, held until 1492. And usually the highlight of this visit is to the beautiful Alhambra. Now, Alhambra in Arabic means red castle, and it's located on the hill of Al-Sabica. So the first historical documents note that the Alhambra dates to around the 9th century and became a military fortress. Then we work from Granada out to Toledo, and up until 1560, Toledo was the capital of Spain, and it's a melting pot of Judaic, Christian, and Islamic cultures. Toledo steel and swords have been famous for a long, long time, and then it's also known as one of the original producers of marzipan, as far back as 850. Now, marzipan is a mix of almond and sugars blended as filling for chocolate and other delicacies. Then we enjoy 2 nights in the incredible city of Madrid, which is a major cultural capital of Europe. Amazing works of art, wonderful food, and great entertainment. And I can't talk about Spain without talking about paella. This is a wonderful seafood dish that they put on as a regular, one of their staples. Then you have tapas, which are a great option for food as well. So this has 2 departures, as I mentioned before, March 23rd, which is guaranteed to head out the door, and then November 2nd as well. Now, this tour really brings to life the best of what Italy has to offer. It focuses on the heart of the country in the hills of Chianti, with short distances to each of our sites, and a 1 hotel stay for 7 nights in the center. Now, we enjoy a full day of touring in the city of Florence, where our morning includes the city tour, and that has the Accademia with Michelangelo's David. We'll also walk along the Duomo, Florence's cathedral and baptistry, and learn about the architectural renaissance that matched the timeline of the artistic renaissance. We make our way to the River Arno to walk along the Ponte Vecchio, which is Florence's old bridge, and that's the last remaining bridge of those dating prior to World War II. Outside of Florence, we incorporate a cooking class, and that's where you can try your hand at homemade pastas. Winery tour is incorporated as well, and that's where we focus on 2 styles of wine, Chianti as part of our cooking class, and then we do a Brunello tasting, and that's done in the area of Montalcino, where a sommelier walks us through the tasting and traditions of the famous region. Then we incorporate a lunch at a saffron-producing farmhouse near San Gimignano, and visits to both that city of towers as well as Siena, which is home of the Il Palio horse race. And then you'll enjoy a 30-minute lake cruise out to Isola Maggiore on Lake Trasimeno, and that's where we have lunch, dessert, and coffee at a really nice leisurely pace out on the island. And it's got a beautiful little church on top, as well as lots of little shops. And this is a great food and wine experience unlike any other. We have 3 dates in 2023, and such a fantastic opportunity to try all the different foods of the Tuscan region, as well as the wine. And then Italy's highlights of Amalfi Coast. And this is a Mediterranean paradise. The Amalfi Coast is one of the most stunning coastlines in the entire world. And we fly into Rome and then spend 5 nights in the Sorrento area. We make the famous drive down the coastline in a smaller coach and see the towns of Positano and Ravello. And then we incorporate a limoncello tasting, which at the right temperature makes for a great treat. We also have a cheese tasting incorporated, and that is in Positano. That's where we learn about how mozzarella is made. Now, mozzarella is a southern Italian specialty. We offer 2 optional days, one to the Isle of Capri, which is one of the most beautiful sites anywhere in the world, and the other is to the city of Naples, where pizza is king. One of the other highlights of this tour is our visit to Pompeii. That's where we learn all about the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, and this tour offers the best of the Italian coastline and some delicious food along the way. So March 21st is very close to guaranteed departure, just needs 1 or 2 more passengers and it's ready to go out the door. Athens and the Greek Isles. This is a Mediterranean dream as well. It's on so many people's bucket lists, and now that international travel is that much easier, this tour does book up. Athens is the historical capital of Europe. Its history stretches over 3,400 years, and its climate is superb. Then you also have that legendary Greek sunlight overlooking the sea. Our city tour incorporates Syntagma Square, that's Constitution Square, the massive Temple of Zeus, and it's one of the most important buildings in the Altis. And then we also see the Olympic Stadium, and this is where the original Olympic Games took place. Originally, everyone sat on the ground, but the stadium went under transformation in the 2nd century from rectangular to horse shape, and capacity increased to 50,000. And that's when the concept of the modern games came around, but those didn't take place till the 1800s. And this is where they actually built the stadium complete with marble from the nearby mountain. We see the Parthenon, and that is where a shrine was built to Athena, and the temple was completed in 438. And that same year, they built a statue out of gold and ivory dedicated to Athena. We visit the Acropolis Museum, and within the museum, the walls of ancient pottery and statues line the gallery, and below you are glass floors, and that makes the excavations below you visible. Many of the artifacts found in the museum date back to about 500 BC. And then Plaka is one of my favorite neighborhoods of Athens, and in the shadows of the Acropolis, it's like a village within the city. It's the oldest section of Athens in terms of neighborhoods. Then we take the Blue Star Ferry from the port of Piraeus out to Mykonos, and that's where we take a beautiful ride along the Aegean Sea and the charm of the village of Chora. And then you also get a chance to see Little Venice and the windmills that really bring to life the wonderful island. Now, Little Venice in Mykonos is one of the most romantic places on the island, and seeing sunset from here is a beautiful experience. I highly recommend grabbing dinner at a restaurant to see the views, as otherwise the area gets crowded with visitors for sunset specifically. Then from Mykonos, we go out to Delos, and you'll be blown away by Delos and all the fascinating archaeology. And that's where you'll have a guided tour of centuries-old sites, and it's considered the most sacred of all islands. According to Greek mythology, Apollo was born on the island in the Cyclades archipelago. The following day, it's off to Santorini, known since ancient times as Thera. It's one of the most famous islands in the world, and you can sit in front of the caldera, enjoy local dishes, a drink, or coffee, all while gazing out over this beautiful volcano. And we incorporate a walking tour of Ia, the town, and then the following day, you'll have a free day to pick and choose activities or relaxation. Then grapes have been cultivated on Santorini since before the major eruption of the volcano. And today there are about 40 different local grape varietals grown on the island. Most of the tastings are predominantly white wines, so we do incorporate a wine tasting on this trip. Then we'll return to Athens by ferry and either fly out the following day or join our extension tour to northern Greece. And that features 2 of the monasteries in Meteora, home to 17 monks and 50 nuns. And then we also visit Kalimbaka and Delphi, home of the oracles. So 2 departures for this year, May 2nd and October 10th. Alpine Swiss Villages is a very unique itinerary in that it focuses on the smaller villages rather than the big cities. And so we start in Zurich on arrival for one night and stop in Bern to see the famous clock tower and visit the city. Then it's off to Lauterbrunnen, And this is where we take the Cogway to a town called Wengen, which is a very small Swiss village up in the Alps. And we stay 6 nights in this beautiful town. And each day we take different modes of transportation. With the Swiss transportation system being so fluid and organized, this is really unlike any other tour. Now, our visits include the base towns of Alpine Mountains in Grindelwald and Gimmelwald. Grindelwald is at the base of the Eiger Mountain, and that's a peak in the Alps for the strongest mountain climbers at over 13,000 feet. We also enjoy a lake cruise on Lake Brienz and time in Interlaken. As well, we have 2 main dates for this trip. A couple of beautiful waterfalls, Trummelbach Falls and Reichenbach Falls are part of this trip as well. And then we also have an optional day trip out to Zermatt and the Matterhorn. And that is a can't miss stop on this trip as well. So July 19th with Jeremy West, and then August 16th with Chris McCool. Now, a couple of our other programs, we do offer some cruises with other companies, and one is the American Steamboat Company, the Queen. So this has multiple different options to go up and down the Mississippi, as well as some of the other fascinating rivers in the U.S., and that incorporates the Columbia River. So they do a great Columbia River cruise focusing on Lewis and Clark, as well as the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. We work with a lot of the ocean liner partners, including Holland America and Princess. So Holland America running many different cruises around the world. And then Princess Cruises, similar in terms of destinations, but different style in terms of the ships. And then as we wrap up, just wanted to touch on the show specials again for today. If you book a new 2023 tour or river cruise by January 27th, we would reduce the deposit $100. That way you're putting less money up front. And then we're also offering $20 off the travel insurance. And that's if you pay with deposit at the time. You can save hundreds of dollars with the early booking savings. Again, it's extended to more travelers. So the first 10 to book on a tour save $100. The first 11 to 20 save $75. And again, till the end of February, the first 21 to 50 passengers save $50 automatically. Now, one category upgrade for our river cruises, that is the October 25th Burgundy and Provence River Cruise, or our November 2023 Switzerland and Christmas Markets of the Rhine Cruise. So it could be a savings of between $200 and $400 per person. A one category upgrade just means that if you book a category C on our cruise, you're automatically upgraded one category above. This is again using the code JAN17. So when you book by next Friday, January 27th, use the code JAN17 and these offers apply. Now, how you can book is either calling our 1-800 number. You can email Joe, Holly, or April at afctours.com. Or on our website, you can visit afcvacations.com and click on the link for forms. We just wanted to thank you for attending. Thanks for taking your time to spend with us today, learning about all the different options of tours we have available. If you do have any questions, anything feedback-wise about the show or new show ideas, you can email April at afctours.com. You can also email her if you want to be added to the brochure mailing. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.